Hey everyone, I am back from Pro Tour Magic Origins in lovely Vancouver, and the deck of the tournament was definitely the blue-red Thopter deck that propelled Mike Sigrist to Player of the Year. He ended up finishing in second place, losing to the delightful Yoel Larson. So congratulations, Yoel, and awesome job, Siggy. I actually lost to Sigrist round 5 of the tournament, and my Devotion deck was not very good against a 5/5 flyer, let me tell you that much. So this deck started popping up on Magic Online a little bit before the tournament, although the versions that I saw online were not nearly as tuned as the version that people brought to the Pro Tour. Surprise, surprise. So I decided to roll with this deck for today's video just because I think this is the deck that people want to see the most. Like, this is the big new deck, so here we go. Basically, the goal is to reduce your opponent's life from 20 to 0. It's not that complicated, but in order to do that, we have a lot of synergies going on here. We have the Shrapnel Blast, the Ensoul Artifact, the Darksteel Citadel from M15, but those together did not quite make a deck. So we have some new cards in here. We have Chief of the Foundry to pump all of our Thopter tokens. We have Hangerback Walker, which is very good at making Thopter tokens. And Whirler Rogue, also very, very good at making Thopter tokens. So as it turned out, basically needed these 3 cards right here. And now we have a deck. So it was good enough to put 2 people in the top 8, and a lot of other people went like 8-2 or had similar constructed records. So aside from these 3 cards, there aren't too many things that are new here. Like Ornithopter was around with Springleaf Drum. We had Ghostfire Blade to put on our either like face down morph creatures or on our artifacts and stuff. We had Phyrexian Revoker, which was especially potent against me playing Green-Red Devotion. It basically like entered the battlefield and killed my Elvish Mystic, so that was not very cool. But yeah, it is very much on the back of these new cards that this deck exists. So Hangerback Walker, very, very big deal. You can play for 2 mana, for 4 mana, whatever. You can start cranking it up. You can start attacking them with it. You can sack it to a Shrapnel Blast and make a bunch of Thopters. And this gives you a lot of resiliency against removal of cards like Languish that would be otherwise pretty good against a deck like this. Although, conveniently, Ensoul Artifact makes a 5/5, so also quite good against Languish in that regard. But Chief of the Foundry, like, it doesn't seem all that great here because we're not really trying to go wide outside of the random Thopter stuff, but Chief is so important in making those Thopters into actual threats. Plus, the body on this thing is not that bad all on its own, so this thing ends up actually being quite potent. And Whirler Rogue, kind of a weird inclusion, honestly. You would think that Chandra's parents, Pia and Kieran Nalaar, would be a better fit for a deck like this. You can use your Thopters or whatever, really, to start shocking things, but it is very mana intensive, and the deck is base blue, so when you start adding Pia, you saw some of those decks in the Pro Tour where like their mana bases were like 3/3 for basic lands, or they had to play 4 mana Confluence and stuff like that, whereas you stick to Whirler Rogue, your red card is only Shrapnel Blast, and, granted, some versions played, like, a collateral damage or whatever, but instead of one of the Stubborn Denials, but whatever. Shrapnel Blast is basically the only red card in the deck, which allows you to play 6 islands, and Whirler Rogue might actually be better than the Nalaars anyway, just because giving Unblockable to something that is wearing an Ensoul Artifact is a pretty big game, and this deck is all about, like, squeaking through the last points of damage, and finding some way to finish your opponent off after they stabilize. So Whirler Rogue is actually just very, very good, and it's just tap 2 untapped artifacts. It's not like, pay X amount of mana or whatever. Like, Whirler Rogue can come into play and give something unblockable that turn, which is very, very good. And on top of that, it gives you 4 points of power and toughness divided among it. It gives you multiple creatures to move Ghostfire Blade around to, has multiple things for Chief of the Foundry to pump, so overall, Whirler Rogue, I think, is a slam dunk. Pia and Kieran, not so much. So, this was basically what the main deck looked like of the Channel Fireball face-to-face, conglomeration. And their deck looked really, really good. I made some slight changes. The mana base has 1 less mountain, 1 less either island or Foundry of the consoles, depending on, which person on the team it was. But, Tomb of the Spirit Dragon. Bang. Mono Red wins the Pro Tour? Alright, we'll play this card. So, this is a card that some people played, and it looked really, really good. I know that Michael Majors, a teammate of mine, playing Devotion, just lost to this card, like, straight up. He just, like, entered into a race where it was, like, they were hitting him for 3 or 4, he was cracking back for 5, but, like, they just won the race because they had a Tomb of the Spirit Dragon of all cards. So, Also, against Mono Red, phenomenal card. So, I like that. I'm not even necessarily convinced that the deck should have 4 Darksteel Citadels, but I think the mana is good enough. And I am, trying cutting a mountain, going down a red source, so we'll see how much that punishes me, but hopefully not at all, because I'm very lucky. But, sideboard, Thopter Spy Network, that's a plan against control. CFB face-to-face, had a console, Foundry of the Consoles, Console of the Foundries, whatever it is, the land that makes Thopters in the board, as an additional land to board in when you're boarding in these 4-drops. I do have an additional land, but I think it's just another tomb. I think that's pretty reasonable. It's pretty unlikely that you really activate the Foundry anyway, so the extra land can just be another tomb. I think that's alright, but yeah, Thopter Spy Network is the card that you want against control decks, anything like Abzan or Blue-Black Control. We have Disdainful Stroke up top, pretty good against Devo, which I can attest to. Also, might be good against decks with like 4 and 5 mana sweepers. I'm not sure like how many counterspells you actually want to bring in there, because you already have things like Stubborn Denial, so maybe like a couple. We'll see though. Roast kills Siege Rhino, kills Blue Kratos, kills Whisperwood Elemental, anything that's gonna like gum up the ground. So you don't necessarily have to lean on Ensoul Artifact on your Ornithopter in order to kill someone. And then they had some Seismic Ruptures, talked about the extra land already. And then my changes are, boom, I have the Aether Grid. I 3-0'd I 3-0'd an 8-4 today with a pretty sweet Aether Grid deck. But yeah, some people at the Pro Tour played this card as well, and I think it can give you a leg up in the mirror match potentially. So I'm just playing 1 to try it. I thought you could maybe play 1 main deck as well, but I'm only playing the 1. But if you want to get cutesy, you can, probably feel free to cut that 4 Stubborn Denial and slide in one of these sweet cards here. And also for the mirror match, I think this is probably the best card you can play. This is Harbinger of the Tides. I mean, we could play something like Smash to Smithereens or whatever, but this card is really, really good against Ensoul. It's very good against Hangerback Walker. It's really good if they're like tapping all their stuff to like make their stuff unblockable. With Warlord Rogue, you just get to blow them out. So this seems like the best card against Ensoul Artifacts. So I want to give it a try, and we have 15 blue sources, not counting the Springleaf Drums. So I think it's castable. So yeah, pretty much the same deck, but made a few changes in response to what happened at the Pro Tour, and hopefully they'll work out. But yeah, this deck looks like a ton of fun. It did defeat me in the Pro Tour, so it's pretty good, and got second, and it kind of stumbled a little bit against Mono Red in the finals, but I think we can kind of solve those issues and tune the deck, and hopefully people are not being super hateful in this daily event, because that would be the worst. But yeah, let's get to some battles.